Welcome to Career Tipper Podcast, hosted by Michelle Beatty. The Career Tipper Podcast is a motivational resource that shares career and entrepreneurial tips by industry experts that will help amazing people evolve to their professional best. And now your host, Michelle Beatty.
Episode 8 of the Career Tipper Podcast features Bess Auer. Bess is the co-host of Blog Talk TV. She also hosts the weekly radio Smarketing News on WPRK 91.5 FM featuring smart marketing tips, founder stories, and a hyper-local focus on Orlando area businesses. Bess is dedicated to educating, marketing, and business professionals on digital strategies through her annual conference, Florida Blogger, and social media conference known as Florida BlogCon. It's a one-day gathering of the state's biggest online influencers and social media pros and has grown into one of the largest conferences of its type in the Southeast. I'm your host, Michelle Beatty, career confidence author and coach. Bess, welcome to Career Tipper Podcast.
Oh, Michelle, thank you for that welcome. I'm so happy to be here. You know, you have a voice that's made for podcasting or radio. I could just listen to it all day long.
Oh, thank you.
You do?
Thank you. So, Bess, I know I've watched you over the years, and I think I started attending Florida BlogCon after you had been, producing it for a while, and it just really helped me evolve, at that time, a blogger, understanding what an online influencer is, and just educating me on what it means to be in this amazing mecca of blogging and the whole nine, and what avenues it can bring and all the greatness it can bring. But I want to know, before I met you on that path, what was your journey to becoming a digital marketing trifecta that you are as an educator, creator, and strategist?
Oh, my goodness. I was a classroom teacher for almost 20 years. I taught English, middle school English, and writing was my passion. And I always wanted to go to a blogging conference because I got into blogging just personally, but I couldn't afford to take off from school and fly to some place that was offering this blogging conference because it was really just a hobby at the time. So I did the next best thing. I went around to all the bloggers I knew in the area, and I said, if we got together and held a blogging conference here, would you share everything that you know? And everybody was so gracious. They donated their time, their knowledge, and that was when the first blogging conference was born. And it just kind of felt natural for me. I went from educating students in a classroom to doing blogger education, working, with adults, even though I still work with some students who are getting into blogging. But it was just a natural fit to just continue the education and the educating, even though I was educating about blogging and social media. Mm-hmm. And then that extends to the consulting I do with companies. I educate companies about how they can use online digital strategy to reach their audience. It's the same thing with Blog Talk TV. It was just educating the viewers, and the same thing with the radio show, Smarketing News. We're just educating business owners about how to do smart marketing. So I guess I'm just an educator at heart.
You are, and that's why I wanted you to be a part of the Career Tipper Podcast, because I'm all about sharing resources with people that help them have career tipping moments. And yes. I have seen you do that repeatedly with so many different things, not only just watching you and what you do with your own brands, but connecting people, connecting bloggers. You're very transparent with community. You're all about support and try something new and get out your comfort zone and see what type of relationships you can forge, because this is a community of influencers, and therefore you have to, step out your comfort zone, which is career tipping for some people, and you create a safe place for people to do that in all your platforms.
Well, I believe the internet is big enough for everybody, and we will get more accomplished if we're working together than if we're competing against each other. So even, at our conference, one of our first breakout sessions is blogger breakout by niche. So all the fashion bloggers get together, all the business bloggers get together, all the mommy and parent bloggers get together, the travel bloggers, because I don't think they're competing against each other. I think they're helping each other. They should be helping each other. Gosh, I have trouble, monetizing my blog. How have you done it? Because really, the internet is a huge place. It's an endless space. And if I'm a sports fan, I'm not going to read just one person's blog. I'm going to read everybody's blog that I like. So I believe that we're stronger together than we are by trying to hoard our secrets and keep what we know to ourselves. If you give out to the world sharing those best practices, it's going to come back to you.
It will. It totally will. Now, Bess, what was that moment that you knew becoming a serial digital strategist was your purpose?
Mm-hmm. I love that you use that word, serial digital strategist, because I guess that's what I am, even though I don't feel like it. So I guess it's just been a part of following my passion. What I love about blogging and social media is really it's such a low-cost barrier. Meaning, if you want to start a blog on something that you're really passionate about, you could do it for practically no money as compared to starting a brick and mortar business. That you need investors, you need, inventory, whereas online stuff, it really is just kind of elbow grease. You have to, if you don't know how to set up a blog, you Google, how do I set up a blog? You have YouTube tutorials. So there's all sorts of resources out there, and it really just takes you sitting in front of a computer, doing your research, and starting it. And so I have been able to put my passions out there. The first one, my first kind of foray into blogging was the Central Florida Top 5, which was where I got to talk all about my hometown. I was born and raised here in Florida. I love Orlando. I got to talk about the great things happening here. And so that was my first blog. And then my second one, which was really a blogging site, was Florida Swim Network. My husband's a swim coach. My son grew up swimming. And so we started reporting and actually live streaming swim meets. And that actually grew beyond our wildest dreams. I mean, that really became a full-time business. But really, again, it was just a matter of following my passions and being in the moment and putting what I love online and growing the community from there.
Now, Florida Top, even with Florida Top 5, you grew it. Mm-hmm. You made sure it was all good and solid, and you turned it over to someone else that needed that you got this, you can do this. It's like you wrapped it in the most beautiful gift wrap and said, here.
I felt like it's, and it was the same thing with Florida Swim Network, which was acquired last year. It's actually been a year now. When I handed those businesses over, when I sold them, it was like my baby. I loved it, and I loved the entity. I just needed to clone myself because I was doing Central Florida Top 5. We started this Florida Swim Network. It took off. I was too busy to do both. And then Brian Wilson was right there, and he said, I would love to take it over. And, we made a deal, and it was perfect because I took somebody that had that passion, that energy to do what I couldn't. And then this past year, the new owners of Florida Swim Network, they were young, they had the energy, then, they wanted to take it and run with it. So, I want the best for him. I want him to succeed because that, again, still reflects back on me. It was something I started, so, I wish only the best for him, and I support, and I'm their biggest cheerleader.
That is a very unique way of paying it forward.
Well, it's you could only hope somebody would do that for you as well. So I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay, high five from Miami.
Yes.
I totally agree with that. I totally am here with you because I'm all about connecting and sharing. And even if you feel you might have a deficit of support, that doesn't mean that you have to give that out into the world. You can support beyond yourself. And like you said earlier, trust that it'll come back to you. But it's not about coming back to you. It's just putting that out, that support, letting someone know, I see you, I believe in your talents, and here's a resource for you. Here's a platform. Absolutely. So exciting. So exciting. Okay, Bess, how has being the marketing chameleon, because you are a chameleon, you just constantly change with your environment. So how has that served you well as you've evolved in as a digital creator? Like, because that's what you are, a creator. So how has your marketing, because you're multifaceted with that, how has that helped you evolve as a digital creator?
Well, I think by being a student of not only life but of marketing, because I was a classroom teacher and I don't have a marketing degree. I didn't go get a business degree, but fortunately, that wonderful thing called the internet has all these incredible resources that allows you to go through and research. And so I make it my mission to always try and learn whatever new tools are out there that I can use. So when live streaming, when we first started live streaming, it was kind of the Wild West. Nobody really knew how to do it yet. And so we teamed with some guys from Full Sail University who came in that helped us learn everything. And the one thing I learned, though, and Mark Middleton of Growing Bolder, if you're not familiar with growingbolder.com, definitely check it out. Mark Middleton is the CEO there, and he was a guy that was a newscaster. He was a news anchor at West Channel 2 here locally in Orlando for years and years and years. Everybody knew him. And then late in life, he stopped doing the television and started this whole business called Growing Bolder. He wasn't growing older, he was growing bolder. And I was so impressed with everything that he was doing that I asked him to be the first keynote at the very first Florida Blogger Conference. And so he came in and he was talking and he said, when you own your own business, you may not be able to afford an accountant. So you better learn how to keep the books. You may not be able to afford a graphic designer. So guess what? You better get on the internet and watch a couple of YouTube tutorials on how to do graphic design. You may not be able to afford a marketer. So you better learn how to do it. He said you have to become adept at all these different things. You may not know the most, but you have to know a lot. And so I really took that to heart. And so when we were broadcasting, when we were televising stuff, live streaming it, I made sure I learned how to be a television producer. I learned how to produce a show. I learned how to mix audio. Simply because sometimes we couldn't afford to have an audio guy with us at the University of Florida, so I would fill in for it, save a little money there. I'm not the best graphic designer, but I can save money by doing some graphic design stuff myself. And so I think by always being a student and always learning so you can do it, yeah, great. If you make it big and you can afford to hire the best, that's great. But otherwise, if you can fill in, you're just adding to your wheelhouse those skills that you have. So does that kind of answer your question?
It does, because I want to also know a little bit more about your strategy of how you stay in the student mode, but I think you kind of answered it because you're constantly learning what you think you need, be it accounting, be it graphic design, or which is Photoshop for many people, just how to produce a show, like what does that, how does that impact you? So I think it's cool. Now, okay, so you spoke about it from a creator standpoint, but what about from an educator standpoint?
From an educator standpoint, so there's two parts of education. One is listening to people a lot smarter than you, and then two, turning around and sharing that information that you've learned with others. So I think that's really where kind of the blogging conference has helped a lot, because at any different BlogCon, we'll have 25 to 30 people there sharing their knowledge, from podcasters, Lou Mangello talking about how to create a successful podcast, to Kim Vidge talking about how to use Pinterest, which I still don't quite get, to Jim Hobart there sharing how to do great photos. So I really think it doesn't always fall on you to know how to do everything. As long as you can find those people that do know how to do it, listen to them, and then get them to share their knowledge. So I think from the educator standpoint, just getting people that are smarter than you to share that knowledge, it's a win-win recipe.
It is a win-win, and who doesn't like talking about what they love to do, right?
Yeah.
You hit that sweet spot for some people, and they're just, they become chatty Cathys, and they just want to tell you all about it.
I love when it's somebody who's like, I've never thought about speaking at a conference before. Like we had Jamie Niestrick, who is a great blogger. She, though, is an accountant. And so she gave this great talk about accounting for bloggers. And it was stuff that terrified me because she's like, if you're giving free gifts, if you're giving free tips, you have to pay tax on those. And I'm thinking, oh my God. But she was amazing. And afterwards she came up, she goes, I never thought I'd be able to talk like that. So I love when we empower some of these people that have the knowledge in their head to get out there and share it.
I love it. I love it. Now you have cultivated an amazing community that learns from you and supports you. I mean, it just makes you smile when you see like how strong your community is. How do you choose to protect your bond with your community?
So I've had the privilege of building kind of two different communities. I have the blogging community that I've been a part of building here in Florida. And we did that very first Florida BlogCon when I was still teaching. In my little elementary school gymnasium, the maintenance guy and I were in there, carrying the table, setting up for everybody to come. I had a couple fellow teachers that volunteered to do registration and everything for me. So it was funny, though, because the people who attended had such a great time. And they said, when you get really big, you can fly in some of the really big names. And I kind of took offense at that because we have some really great names right here in Florida. I've mentioned, Jeanette Scott or Jeanette Johnson from Jay's Everyday Fashion. She's one of the most followed bloggers in the nation. We have Rochelle Lucas, who is one of the top travel bloggers in the world. Lou Mangello, I've mentioned him already. He has over 1 million downloads of his podcast every single month. It's just amazing. So I kind of take offense to outsiders. I'm like, hey, we're great right here in Florida. So I really fiercely protect promoting our own right here in Florida. I like protecting our community that way. The other community I had a privilege in building was the Florida swimming community. So there's 200 plus club teams that compete here in the state of Florida. And they've got anywhere from 50 to 200 or 300 kids per team. So we have a pretty robust community here in the state of Florida that we really focused on. We spent time live streaming those kids, writing articles about them, promoting them like they were rock stars, Olympians. When we went to the Olympics down in Rio, we had 57 athletes that were representing 27 countries, but they all train here in the state of Florida. So we called them Team Florida. And so we were excited to cover all of them. And so by really focusing on our mission, swimmers here in the state of Florida, we weren't worrying about Michael Phelps. Everybody else was covering Michael Phelps. We were covering the swimmers here in Florida. And by staying true to that mission, I think it really protects, I think, that bond that we have with our community. They trust us and know that we're going to be looking out for the best for those swimmers. Or when we're talking about blogging, they know that we're going to be promoting Florida bloggers as compared to somebody else. And I think that's important to really stay true to your community and what you start off with.
I agree. And they appreciate you for it. And you establish loyalty.
Yeah, I agree. And, there is a level of trust that you have to be careful not to betray, and you can learn that the hard way. We made the mistake one time. We had the Open Water Nationals here in Florida, and we were covering it, and the person that won was not here from the state of Florida, and we interviewed them. We missed interviewing the person that came in second that was a Florida swimmer. And boy, did we hear it in droves from our community saying, why are you interviewing that guy? Why not the other one? Why not the Florida kids? So they'll let you know. Your community will hold you accountable if you mess up. But fortunately, they were forgiving as well. We interviewed them later, but they'll let you know if you mess up.
Well, thank goodness for recovery.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, as we're listening to you, we know that you manage a lot of projects. So, Bess, please share what are a few essentials, be it mindset or tools that helps you conquer time management?
So I'm an old-fashioned girl, even though I am digital. I have to confess that my tools are paper and pencil. On my desk, which is actually my dining room table most days, I'm spread out. I have a monthly calendar. So by the month that I have all my appointments written down so I don't double book myself, because if I'm working on the radio show, I need to make sure I don't book anything when I have something due for the Florida Blog Con. So I have to visually see it. And then I have separate sheets of paper. And I have Smarketing News at the top of one sheet of paper. And I have my to-do list for Smarketing News. Then I have another sheet of paper with Florida Blog Con. I have my to-do list with Florida Blog Con. And so I have my to-do lists all on separate things because I departmentalize. If I'm focusing on Smarketing News, that's all I'm working on. And then so I go through that to-do list, and then I may totally forget I have other lists. So I've got to make sure I visually see them and go from paper to paper. And I haven't yet found an app or an online tool that works as well as just paper and pencil for me. And then the last thing is my iPhone alarm. I will set, for example, tonight, you and I were talking for this podcast. I set my alarm this morning to remind myself. I set it for 5 p.m. to remind me at 5:30 I'm doing an interview with you. So I have to confess, I was in the middle of cycling when that alarm went off, and I look over and I'm like, why is my alarm set? Oh, yeah, I've got the podcast I got to do. So I jumped off the bike. But so between paper and pencil and that alarm, I make most things.
I love it. I'm an alert girl too. I love my calendar and my iPhone. It is my best friend. And I love that there's 2 alerts per entry. So you can do that because it is great. It is great. Okay, so how can bloggers and businesses work with you to uplevel and advance their brand?
So obviously, they can attend our conference, the Florida Blogger and Social Media Conference. That's great for if you are a blogger and online influencer that want to further their skills or learn more about the space or connect with brands. But we do have a lot of small business owners or people that work in marketing or who are marketing reps or advertising agency reps that come to not only learn about marketing and social media and creating content, but also to connect with online influencers. You know, how can I get this product into the hands of some bloggers to write about it? Well, that's a perfect place to come to learn about how to connect with marketers or with bloggers, how to do it the right way, and actually meet them in person. So that's the first, probably best way to learn and work with me. The second way is I do consulting with individual companies. It just depends on if I'm a good fit for you or not. Sometimes I have businesses that come to me and I don't know anything about their industry, and I have to turn them down because I'm like, you'd be wasting your money because I do not know. So I have to make sure they're a good fit for me before I'm able to actually really work with them and consult with them.
I'm sure they appreciate your honesty.
Well, usually I can point them to somebody that, and that's the wonderful thing. I love being able to pass it along to other people like, hey, this person has worked in your space before. They know what they're doing. Go talk with them.
Like I said, you wrap it up in a nice little gift.
My pleasure.
It's like, here you go. Okay, Bess, you've experienced different audiences through your various platforms. Is there a repeated takeaway from interacting with them that keeps you motivated? Because you're solidifying your legacy while building up others. So has there become like a common theme that you constantly see as you reflect through all your different ventures that you've had?
Engagement is probably the biggest key to any community that we've built. And it has to be real engagement. So for Florida BlogCon, we have the once a year in-person meetup, but we also continue through social media and we need to engage. And it always cracks me up when somebody messages the Florida Blogger and Social Media Conference on Facebook, like wanting information. I get the feeling that I think they're like, messaging this huge organization. They're always shocked when like I answer them back personally. I'm like, yeah, I mean, who did you think was going to answer? So that personal engagement with them is really key. And then that was especially true with the Florida Swim Network. So we got big enough to where we were live streaming for ESPN and the SEC Network. And so we were doing some major meets. But when we were live streaming, no matter what tools we did, we insisted on that personal engagement because the parents that were tuning in really enjoyed being able to talk. So what I mean by engagement is we had our commentators there at the University of Florida, and we're broadcasting a meet. And one of the Florida swimmers is from South Africa, and Vanessa Rousseau is the mom. And, you know, she doesn't see her son for months at a time. And so she would be on the chat room during our broadcast, and she'd be like, hey, do you guys mind zooming in on my son? I haven't seen him for 4 months.
Oh, wow.
And so we would zoom in on Sebastian Rousseau and let her see him. And she'd be like, oh, my gosh, thank you. And then we'd have other times where we'd have parents that maybe were serving in the Middle East. And they would contact us ahead of time. They're like, hey, you know, we're not going to be able to be there for my son's championship meet. Do you mind giving a shout out to them while they're swimming? And so it was that personal touch and that engagement and being able to do that. We didn't treat it like television. We didn't treat it like we were this big organization. We were just people trying to help other people see their kids swim. And by keeping it on that real personal level, whether it's helping bloggers or whether it's live streaming swim meets, that has been the key, that personal engagement. And now that we don't have Florida Swim Network anymore, I am still, though, emailing back and forth with parents and grandparents that I met through that. And so I think it's just all about relationships that you have with your community, and that stands true no matter what the community is. That's my takeaway from it.
I love your takeaway. Because it's personal.
It is. It really is. Business is personal. You're doing it wrong if it's not, in my opinion. It's
personal, and it's clear that you cherish the blessing that it brings you, whatever that is, whatever you define as your blessing from your efforts, the works of your hands. I think it's awesome that but that's who you choose to be, right? So you gave a mother peace. You know, you let a parent be present when they couldn't, like you help them. What you do, career tipping, connecting dots, you connected the dots, and not everyone is always willing to take the time to be that for someone. It's bigger than you. I hear I've noticed lately a lot in 2018, influencers that are really on their game. At this point, it's all about legacy for them. And they're like, it's bigger than me. It's not about me. It's bigger than me. And I feel like you represent that same, it's bigger than me.
You know, I think, especially in today's political environment and, you know, some of the happenings that are happening, you know, we live in a crazy, crazy world. And I've been inspired by other people that I see them doing stuff that really it is bigger than them. Last week on Smarketing News, I had on a video blogger named Alex Hance. And I mean, he's just turned 30, so he's a younger guy, but he is so inspirational because he's all about inspiring other people of his generation to just go forward and follow their dreams. And so I love seeing people like that, and it keeps me invigorated and exciting about what I'm doing because I'm like, yeah, you're right, I can do this. And so I love that, you know, and, you know, we see it like the students from the Parkland shooting, how they are just, you know, rallying, and they said, this is bigger than us. And it's so true. You're going to be teary-eyed thinking about all this because, I mean, it is. It's. I think we've reached a point in the national conversation where a lot of us are feeling that what we give to the world makes a bigger difference than what we're taking away from it right now.
True. Very true. Because if we just focus on ourselves, how are we going to change the course or help someone breathe easier?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it just comes down to breathing easier. There's,
you know,
peace in that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Jody Mask was 2 weeks ago on my show, And Jody Mask is a pastor at a Presbyterian church here locally in Orlando. And he really uses social media to connect with his congregation. And, one of the things because I asked him, how do you handle trolls? He's a pastor, he can't be mean. And he said, I realized that if somebody's acting that way, there's got to be some pain they have in there somewhere, and maybe I can do something to ease that. And it was just so amazing to hear the way he reflects on, because most people just delete and ban trolls and don't want to deal with them. And his compassion was really very inspiring, and it touched something in me the way he said it. So if we can pay that forward to somebody else, all the better.
It is all the better. Now, you are, I'm convinced you are like a techie. I know, like, I've heard you say that you feel that you're not a techie, but I think you're a techie. And you're fantastic at encouraging others about keeping up with like technology trends and what's going on and how to incorporate it into their business and at least be aware of what's going on so you can understand. Like, I'm surprised you're not on a net neutrality campaign, honestly. But I mean, there's just so much that you constantly, you have like these technology antennas. So I know that you're big into Alexa right now. So what do digital creators need to know about Alexa?
So Alexa is my new passion. Siri is not my friend because Siri does not understand me very well, but Alexa, she understands me, she gets me. I love Alexa. So if you're not familiar with Alexa, it is Amazon's voice. So they have the Amazon Echo, Amazon Echo Dot, and it's voice enabled. So Amazon spent probably 2 or 3 years really investing to be ahead of everybody else with voice app technology. They really spent a lot of time investing in it, and they were first to market. So now Google Home is coming out with one, Apple's getting ready to launch one, but Amazon owns like 80% of the market. So if you are interested in getting into a voice app, it's Alexa where you want to be. So if you're not familiar, you can ask Alexa, hey Alexa, what's the weather outside? It's very similar to Siri, but much more involved. And all of these third-party people are developing what are called skills. So you have apps developed for your iPhone, and if you've ever been in the App Store, you know there's millions upon millions of apps. That is how the Alexa store is getting. So if you go to Amazon.com, you can search in their skills. So they develop skills for Alexa, and it's everything from an interactive storybook for your child to do, or you can connect it with your smart home where Alexa turns on your lights and adjusts your thermometer. If you want to get a new recipe, you can say, hey Alexa, can you give me a new chicken recipe, and she'll find one for you. So I think it's a great opportunity because it's just now the birth of these voice apps for small businesses, bloggers, online influencers to get in on that ground level and kind of be the first to market, as to say, with what you're doing. So for marketing, we have with our radio show the Marketing News Flash Briefing, where I kind of take the best highlights from my guests each week and put them on Alexa so you can listen to a little sound bite, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, get a good tip in there. So it can be really useful, and I'm all about creating content that's going to serve your market. So if you can create something that's going to be a resource that people find useful, then put it on there, put it on Alexa. And the nice thing about it is you don't need any coding to know how to do it. Some really smart guys created this website called getstoryline.com. So through Get Storyline, you can create a free account and you can create some really basic skills for Alexa, and they will walk you through the process of how to do it. They have all these tutorials, and then they will submit to the Amazon store for you. So there's no excuse if you don't know how to do it, they'll walk you through it to getting your content onto Alexa. And I really believe that voice apps are going to be taking over when you're driving your car. We already know that Siri is very useful. They're going to I think probably you're going to have like Ford or one of the dealers create a deal with Alexa to where Alexa's embedded in the car. So you never know what's going to happen with it. And so I think by being on the forefront, you can be part of the growing trend of it.
Trailblazer.
Well, I think it's really the next frontier, and it's so easy to do. And, there are other people that are worried about Alexa listening to you, though. So I do know there are people that are worried about it. I figure I'm not going to be saying anything in my home that anybody's going to care about listening to, but I do understand there are some people that are hesitant about that, though.
That's natural.
Yeah.
That's natural. But it's a trailblazing opportunity that is something that can be an option for many people, right? So
yes,
you can find your place and it be credible and valid.
Absolutely. If it's for you, career tips that you want to put on there, if it's, portions of your podcast that you want to put on there, if you're a small business, like let's say you're a gym, like you're a personal trainer, you can put, diet tips on there, workout tips. You could put in, different exercises people do, talk them through it. So really it's something that just about any business can find something and a reason to be on there.
Okay. Noted. I've taken note.
Awesome.
So what activities do you enjoy doing in your free time or your me time that keeps you smiling?
So I am big into meditating. I started doing that a few years ago, and anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes a day. The Alexa app has this great, I'll say, hey, Alexa, can you open Himalaya sounds? And it's this wonderfully peaceful kind of meditative music, and I can set the timer for 10 minutes or 20 minutes and do so that kind of keeps me sane, keeps me grounded. And then I love reading and writing just for myself. So, those good beach reads, those good romance novels. I don't want anything too heady. I just want to take a nice break and vacation or writing. So that's what keeps me sane.
You have to stay sane, right?
You do.
It's so important. Bess, I appreciate you being a guest on the Career Tipper podcast. Thank you so much. Please share one of your favorite quotes or affirmation that keeps you creating career tipping moments.
Oh, goodness. So I've got a really long one and a short one. The short one is from the Dalai Lama, and he said, happiness is not something that's ready-made. It comes from your own actions. And that is true time and time again. If I could just convince my son of that. I keep saying, you can choose to be happy or not. And he's like, no, I can't. It just happens. And I think that's something that as you grow, as you live life here, you realize you really are in control of that. Mm-hmm. So that's probably my number one. And then if you've never taken time to read the If poem by Rudyard Kipling, it's a long one, so if you can keep your head when all about you or losing theirs and blaming it on you, it's kind of it's a longer poem, and the guy is a genius, or was a genius. He wrote this for his son when his son was going off to fight in one of the world wars. I think it was World War I, and he didn't know if he'd ever see his son again. He was growing older, and, his son was going off to war, so he wrote this poem, and it's kind of like life's little instruction book. And the If poem has something for every single circumstance you will ever come across. So if you can read that If poem, tuck it away, cut and paste it somewhere where you can access it, it will guide you through life. It's amazing. So, in fact, I used to, I first learned it as a sixth grader. My sixth grade teacher, Miss Lola West, made me memorize the If poem as a sixth grade student. So then when I was teaching middle school English, guess what? I made my sixth graders memorize the If poem. It was a test grade. They all did great. But I now, years later, I'll have grown married students come back and say, Mrs. Auer, I still remember the If poem. And they'll still recite it to me. So it's just an amazing thing. Read it if you haven't had a chance to do so.
I definitely will, because I'm not sure if I have, so I need to Google it and read it.
Yeah, Rudyard Kipling, If poem. Okay. Change your life.
When we wrap up, I am Googling away. Yes, indeed. Bess, please share how the listeners can get in touch with you. Sure,
they can find me. Twitter is where I'm most active. It's at Bess. _Auer, BESS _ A as in Apple, UER, or they can always connect with me at smarketing.news or at flblogcon.com. So any of those places, they'll find me lurking online.
And listeners, Bess does not do email. She strictly communicates through Twitter and Facebook. So there's no magic email. You don't have to figure it out. Just find her and tweet or Facebook and message, and she is going to respond to you.
Absolutely will. That was one of the best things I did. I recommend it to anybody that can cut the cord on email. It's just one more app you have to open up and scroll through that spam. I'd much rather connect with you personally, see what's going on in your life via Facebook or Twitter, and then be able to message with you. So it's been great for me.
Fantastic. And you can find me, Michelle Beatty, at CareerTipper.com and on Instagram at CareerTipper. Listeners, thanks for joining us today. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter about upcoming guests and career tipping moments and advice at CareerTipper.com. Thank you, and remember to be confidently you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Career Tipper Podcast. We're grateful for our listeners and guests. For more resources about how to evolve to your professional best, share your comments and feedback about this episode and your suggestions for future guests, visit CareerTipper.com. Until next time, be confidently you.